Okay, go ahead, Director Schmidt.
Okay, I will be calling to order our operations subcommittee meeting here for October 26th. We'll do a roll call for attendance.
Sure. Director Bregman?
Here.
Director Gibson?
Here.
Director Kohler? And Vice Chair Schmidt?
Here.
Terry, can you resend the invite to?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move approval to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Are there any comments on the agenda?
There are none. There are none.
Okay. Roll call.
Director Bregman?
Aye.
Director Gibson?
Aye.
Director Kohler? And Vice Chair Schmidt?
Aye. Okay, are there any public comments? I think this is when we take comments on items not on the agenda.
There are no comments.
Okay, great. Then a motion to adopt last meeting, our last meeting notes.
Move approval of the minutes for the last meeting.
Second.
There are no comments on the minutes, public comments, I mean.
Do we want to skip item 2 till Larry gets on? Go to item 3?
I think that would be great, Director Schmidt, if that works for you.
Let's go for that. Sounds good.
Sure, but hold on, we didn't finish the vote on the minutes.
Yes, vote on the minutes.
Director Bregman?
Aye.
Director Gibson?
Aye.
Director Kohler? And Vice Chair Schmidt?
Aye.
Thank you.
I see they're joined by Larry now.
Okay. Good.
Terry, I think I was muted. I did say aye.
Yeah, I saw your lips. I read your lips.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do lip reading as well.
Good to know. Good to know. We're multi-talented here.
Larry, we're just getting started.
I'm here as well, Terry.
Thank you.
We were just getting started, so maybe should we just pick up with the regular order of the agenda, and I can hand the baton back to Director Russell.
Sure. But you're handing it now?
We're just getting started.
Yeah, that's fine. Have you opened a meeting or?
Yeah, we're on
the roll call. Okay.
Move to item 2 now.
So we need to approve the minutes?
No, we're on item number 2.
Okay. What's item number 2? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Smith Saddle.
Smith Saddle.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, thank you, Chair Russell. Crystal Yesman, Director of Engineering. We had brought to the board operations committee back in July condition assessment that we'd done on Smith Saddle tanks, a very comprehensive analysis of their conditions. And from that meeting, it was decided that we should do a little bit more digging in order to refine our estimates as what is needed to rehab or replace the tanks. So we've been working with our consultants on that, and I am going to pass it over to Alex Anaya, engineering manager for design, and he's going to talk about the amendment to our contract with Kennedy Jenks to do additional condition assessment.
Hi, Crystal. Actually, I got Zach Talbot here, the project managing engineer for that one, with Don Barraza from KJ, who will be presenting the item today for the Smith Saddles. So I'll let Zach take it away with Don.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Crystal. Good morning. I'm Zach Talbot, Associate Engineer with the Design Section. This morning, I'm here to present Amendment 1 to the Smith Saddle Tanks Rehabilitation Project. I'm joined by Don Barraza, our project lead engineer from Kennedy Jenks. He'll be able to answer any of the technical questions that might come up this morning. District staff presented to the Operations Committee on July 17th the findings of a comprehensive structural evaluation of the Smith Saddle tanks. The report evaluated the structural integrity, seismic deficiencies, interior, exterior coating, safety, security, as well as site area improvements of both the tanks. The report concluded that both the Smith Saddle tank's roof structure and upper shell ring have significant areas of corrosion because of the failure of the original 1960s tank coatings. The structural and seismic evaluation of the tanks identified significant areas of the tank's construction that are not in conformance with the national standards of today, which result in deficiencies in structural performance, particularly in a seismic event. Staff received a follow-up request from the July Operations Committee to further evaluate the floors, and I'm here to present amendment number 1 to Professional Service Agreement MA 5909 to conduct additional steel tank floor evaluation of both the tanks, and as well as revised report. The scope of this amendment includes non-destructive ultrasonic testing of the floor plates. In the original findings report, there were a total of 19 measurements taken on the tank's floors. Measurements consisted of interior and exterior locations of tank 2, and only the exterior locations of tank 1, since tank 1 was not drained. The original floor plate thickness is 0.25 inches, quarter of an inch, and the thinnest thickness readings on tank 1 and 2 were 0.123 and 0.092 inches respectively, with an average thickness of 0.214 and 0.194 respectively, roughly 1/8 of an inch, sometimes as low as almost 1/16 of an inch. This additional condition assessment will take up to 200 measurements per tank for a total of 400 measurements. Prior to the floor evaluation, district staff will have to prepare tank 1 for this inspection, as the tanks must be drained one at a time in order for testing to occur. Tank number 1 will require new inlet and outlet valves as they are leaking, and each tank will require several days of pumping to remove the remaining 400,000 gallons of water, which will sit below the outlet pipe elevation. This work is expected to take place in Q1 of 2022, when winter water demand is low. The original professional services agreement with Kennedy Jenks for the condition evaluation report was $213,097. This first amendment to MA 5909 is $58,698 for a total new contract cost with Kennedy Jenks Consultants to increase the amount of $271,795 with an updated staff requested contingency of $27,000, which will bring the total not to exceed amount to $298,795. District staff will make recommendation to execute this amendment number 1 for the Smith Saddle Tanks Rehab Project at a future regularly scheduled board meeting. Thank you, and please let us know if you have any questions.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
The number in the report is 58,698.
I'm in a meeting. I got to call you right back.
I'm sorry, Russell, Director.
I'm a little confused. The amendment number in the board packet is 58,698.
Yes, that's the.
You said
that's
something
for
like
amendment
18,000. And what is this amendment to?
This
what
is
are we talking
amendment
about?
1 for $58,698.
This is amendment to the professional services contract to do additional.
Yeah, I understand, but he's saying 15,000 and it's showing 58,000, or I'm misunderstanding what he's saying.
Oh, I might have, sorry, I'm getting over a cold. It's 58,000. I'm sorry if you misunderstood.
58, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just confused by that.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm sorry.
Can you cut to the chase? I mean, is it because I don't remember that conclusion from the previous presentation that the floor was half thickness. I mean, is the floor doing anything more than holding the water in?
Don, I'll let you speak to that.
So this is Don Barraza with Kennedy Jenks. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
So I want to be very clear. There were limited measurements taken when we previously accessed the tanks in the winter of 2020, 2021. And,
okay.
and the reason is we did not have the equipment to measure the floor plates without removing the coatings at that time. But we were able to take some isolated measurements direct to metal on the outside of the floor plates. And where we were able to get access to the underside of the floor on the outside of the tanks, this is where we received these very low measurements. And there were very limited areas where we could get to these locations and we could probe. But at those locations, we found the steel floor plate thickness to be very thin. And that's not a surprise to us. We would have expected that in those locations. We have seen many tanks in the Bay Area in which this is the initial corrosion point that leads to leakage in the tanks. And the subgrade around these tanks and the way the tanks had been graded and this area had been allowed to erode away just presented these areas as areas that were vulnerable for external corrosion. But I would not draw too many conclusions because of the limited number of locations these measurements were able to be taken regarding the overall floor plate thickness in these two tanks. And that's why to really draw a conclusion about whether or not you're going to be replacing large quantities of the floor plates in these two tanks, should you pursue an alternative that includes rehabilitation of the tanks, you really need better data to make that conclusion, or else you need to proceed as we had done originally, which was to place a contingency in the cost estimate to account for replacement of these floor plates.
Okay, answer my question though. Does the floor plate do anything more than hold the water in? Is there any, is it some form of a membrane in the tank construction, or is it just holding the water in?
The floor plate holds the water in the tank.
Right, that's all it's doing, right?
That's exactly what it's doing. That is all it's doing. That is the,
okay.
The floor plate, that is the function of the shell plates.
And what's the cost to replace the floor plates?
I'm not so sure we had put in a cost to replace the entirety of the floor plates, but we did include a cost to replace upwards of 50% of the floor plates. If you will give me a second, I'll track that cost down.
Okay.
And for the other board members, just to be clear, really this is a decision point. Are we going to rehab the tanks or tear them down and replace them? So the cost.
Well, not exactly, Crystal. We're not deciding that yet. We're just deciding if we have it. Yeah. It will feed into that decision.
So Director, prior to markups, the cost to replace the floor plates and the tanks would be about $150,000 per tank, $300,000 for the two tanks.
Yeah, where you can probably see where I'm going. Is it worth spending $58,000 to avoid spending $150,000? It might be, but we're getting into a significant chunk of the cost, of just going ahead and replacing the floor.
Right. I think the question is whether or not this will lead you to drive towards one conclusion or the other, whether or not repair and recoating of these tanks is a more favorable alternative versus replacement of these tanks.
Understand, but still, we're spending $60,000 or some number. I don't know. I'm a little confused. It's, I guess, $80,000 with the contingency against 150, or even call it 300 with the two tanks. I'm just concerned that it might be just as simple a decision to go ahead and put the cost of the replacement into the budget. I don't recall that number being significant in the total cost. It's not insignificant, but it's not a decision maker, 150 grand.
Yeah, I would tend to say that it's 300 per the two tanks. So, and with markups, that could go to as much as $500,000. The total estimated construction cost of repairing and replacing the steel tanks was about $18.6 million, and the cost of replacing the tanks with concrete tanks was about $21.6 million. So, you're looking at about $3 million difference there. Now you might be talking about $2.5 million difference. So that's
the point.
It's not a big driver in whether you select one alternative or the other from the initial construction cost. But I don't think it would really change the overall outcome of the life cycle cost significantly either.
So Director Russell, yeah, my understanding is, right, as you know, This is an effort to respond to questions. The last time we brought this up, and staff had brought a recommendation to replace the tanks. And then there were questions regarding the level of corrosion in the floor plates and around that area. So this is to update the analysis and bring the alternatives with more information to for the board to decide, do we want to go ahead and repair these tanks given their age and condition? Are we confident in that? Or is staff going to recommend replacing the tanks and have a board discussion along that direction? So I think it is advisable, right, to get this additional information to make that threshold decision, which direction we go.
Well, that's fine, Ben, but that's not what the conversation I remember. The conversation I remember focused on the roof, not on the floor plates.
Right.
And, you know, that was the part that I was actually very uncomfortable with, was they jumped to a conclusion that they couldn't come up with a solution to the roof because of rocks being thrown on it and things like that. It just seemed, frankly, ludicrous to me as an explanation of what the concerns were. That's what I remember being the hang up, was the roof, not the floor plates. You know, again, I think we have to look at, is it we're spending $80,000 to save 300, and because I got a feeling they're going to conclude, having done dozens of these myself, that they're going to need new floor plates. And you know, I'm not fighting it, and I hope when we're talking about removing the last 400,000 gallons, that we're pumping that into the system, not out to waste. That wasn't clear in the discussion, but you know, I'll stop talking. I think I've made my point.
Well, now that we've had a second look, excuse me, has staff changed their recommendation, or does the recommendation stand, or what's the position of staff?
So Director Gibson, this recommendation, this amendment is designed to get additional information such that staff can assess whether or not are we changing our recommendation to full replacement or to repair of the tank. So following the work that we're bringing in this amendment, we would bring an updated recommendation, and it would be one way or another, but we would break down the alternative analysis and the costs of the two approaches.
Okay. So that's yet to come, is what you're telling me.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. You know, like I said, I just think we need to be careful, because I don't remember the floor plates having much of an impact on the overall cost. And he's telling us it's 18.6 million to rehabilitate. 300,000 is sort of chump change in 18.6 million. But, you know, I'm open to it. I mean, if it's going to produce useful information, I question whether you need to do both tanks, whether you couldn't just do one and see where you are. I think the numbers will kick out pretty quickly.
That's a good idea. You know, I don't think we're going to end up rehabilitating these tanks and not rehabilitating or replacing the floor plates.
Exactly.
So I really, you know, I mean, more information is great. At this point, I favor staff's recommendation to replace these tanks with concrete tanks. I'm very concerned about the coatings, the PCBs, the coal tar. You know,
but that's all coming off. Okay, if they
well, you're not made. Yeah, it's coming off, but there'll be trace amounts that remain. And
no, they'll blast to white metal. I don't think there'll be anything left.
Well, if you blast to white metal, you might not have that much metal left. So
that's true,
you know,
but they're blast with a non-abrasive.
Like I said, I support replacing these tanks. This is a 100-year project, and I think we should go for it. So as far as this study, I'd be happy with one tank. I think we can draw conclusions on both tanks with a survey of one. And I don't know if that's really going to affect the price particularly either. So, you know,
it doesn't. Yeah,
it may
well,
not.
It'll affect the price of the amendment.
I would recommend that let us look at an approach to see what comes from one and be able to make the decision. So I would ask for authority for the amendment with the understanding that we'll proceed with one first, and based on the results, make the engineering decision whether we think for maybe the condition looks so good we don't need to do the second one, or we want to confirm it in a small way, or the condition's so poor we're going to have a recommendation for full replacement of the tank for those reasons. So my recommendation, we are hearing the board to consider the approach of the work. If we can be more cost effective than as described, we would do that.
Sounds good to me.
I'm cool with that. With that, I'll, do we have any public comment?
There are none.
Any other board comment? Hearing none, I'm prepared to make a recommendation to go forward with amendment number 1 to the Kennedy Jenks contract.
So just so we're clear, Chair Russell, this is a review and refer to a regular board meeting, so we could
sure
take the information.
But we need to refer it to the board. Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you refer it, Ben, maybe you could add the caveat that we discussed today, okay?
Who's
That's okay with me. Is it okay with you, Molly?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 3, Fire Flow Improvement Program, Ridge Road Pipeline Replacement.
I'll pass this right over to Alex to introduce the project to you.
Hi, good morning, directors. This morning, introducing the Ridge Road Fire Flow Improvement Program is Dion Mokhtari, our newest assistant engineer in the design section. So Dion.
Hi, well, how's everyone going? How's everything going? My name is Dion Mokhtari. I'm the new assistant engineer in design. I'm here this morning to present the Fire Flow Improvement Program Ridge Road Pipeline Replacement Project. This project is located along Lagoon View Drive, Mountain View Drive, and Ridge Road, all within the town of Tiburon. This project will install approximately 5,310 feet of 8-inch pipe, along with all appurtenances, to replace the old leak-prone, undersized fire flow deficient pipe in support of the district's fire flow improvement program. This work will also be in coordination with the town of Tiburon's up-and-coming street overlay project. The engineer's estimate for this project is $1,760,000 and is scheduled to last 180 days with a completion date of May 31st, 2022. Bids are going to be open on November 2nd. If bid documents are acceptable, staff will make a recommendation at a future board meeting for a contract award. The staff recommended action is for review and referral to the board with the operations committee's recommendation to proceed with this project. That is all, and I appreciate having the time to present this line item. Any questions?
So
you did great. Thank you.
Yeah, good report. Is this going to be paid by the fire flow fund versus our budget?
Yes.
That is correct, Director Bragman. It's from the Fire Flow Improvement Program Fund. Yes.
That's good to hear.
Okay. Any public comment?
There are no public comments.
Any other board comment?
Good to have fire flow up there in Tiburon. Those mansions up there. Want to protect those big houses.
Don't want any fires down here.
No.
Okay, so this is the same thing, Molly? Yeah, refer to the board. Okay, so
correct.
We're done with that. Okay, item 4.
Again, I'll pass it to Alex to introduce.
All right, this morning we have the 3rd Street Rehabilitation Project MOU with the City of San Rafael. Presenting that item this morning will be Jake Miller.
Morning. I'm Jake Miller, Associate Engineer in the Design section. I'm here to present item for the 3rd Street Rehabilitation Project Memorandum of Understanding for Project Reimbursement with the City of San Rafael. The district and City of San Rafael have been working on a joint project since 2017 to make major road and water infrastructure improvements as part of the 3rd Street Rehabilitation Project. Project includes up to 1.4 miles of roadway from Union Street to 2nd Street and installation of 6,570 feet of new water main pipe. Pipeline replacement project of this project, the pipeline replacement portion of this project was designed by the district, and the city has incorporated the design into their project. The city will administer and manage the construction contract, with the district inspecting the pipeline portion of the project. The mechanism of payment for this joint project is a reimbursement agreement between the city of San Rafael and the district. The fair and agreed upon reimbursement ratio will be applied to the project costs for a total not to exceed pipeline project reimbursement to the city of $2,870,846. The purpose of this approach is to reduce expense, minimize public impact and disruption, so you don't have two separate agencies working in a very high traffic area. The city of San Rafael will issue its notice inviting construction bids on November 4th, and bids are due on December 2nd. District staff recommends referral of this item to the December 14th board meeting to authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute a reimbursement agreement between the city of San Rafael and MMWD in an amount not to exceed $2,870,846 for the construction costs, construction management fee, and paving credit. Any questions?
I have one. Does it make sense for us to put the purple pipe in there in the same trench?
There's no recycled water in this vicinity, so we wouldn't be able to make a connection to the existing system.
No, but you can on the other side, on the south side of the freeway, right?
Not yet.
I know not yet, but if we don't put it in, it's never going to be yet.
Yeah.
Right, Director Russell, just if I may add just real quick, as far as putting the recycled water line in the same trench, and I'm going to be getting the next item on this, talking about that, it's not really allowed per the drinking water code. It's got to be at least 10 feet of horizontal separation. So it would basically be two different pipelines going in parallel if we did that. So I wish it would be as easy as putting it in the same trench, but unfortunately we can't do that with this pipeline project in the same trench.
Alex, there are some exceptions under the regulations that I was reading this morning. So if you go to Title 22, hold on a second.
Yeah, Title 22, you got the right one.
Well, I know. If you go to Section G, it says the minimum separation distances set forth in the section shall be measured, blah, blah, blah. But it then goes on in Section H, with state board approval, newly installed water mains may be exempt from the separation distances in this section, except subsection F, which has to do with toxic waste sites and stuff like that. If the newly installed main is less than 1,320 feet, replacing an existing main installed in the same location and has a diameter no greater than 6 inches more than the diameter of the main it's replacing, and installed in a manner that minimizes the potential for contamination, including but not limited to sleeving the newly installed main or utilizing upgraded piping materials. So I think it would be worth at least talking to the State Water Board about this project. It just seems to be like the one going down Drake, a critical network node, in our system. We don't have the water there yet, but we may. And even if it eventually comes to a Peacock Gap, that's down that same roadway. So I think we need to at least look into whether we can use that exception to possibly get around that separation distance requirement.
Excellent. I will definitely look into that. And that is subsection F of Title 22, correct, Director Bragman?
Yeah, I'll send it. I'll forward it to Ben and you and Crystal right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. As you'll see in the next item, we'll go into a little more detail into our thought process behind adding recycled water pipeline construction to our potable water pipeline replacement projects. Past practice has been to look at existing systems and see if it's within 500 feet. But moving forward, I fully support and agree with you that we should be looking into the future expansion of recycled water in the projects that are planned or at least on paper in our master plans for expanding those systems. So we'll get into more detail on it on the next item, but we'll certainly look into it for this project, but we hope to really put a little bit more effort into planning and design on recycled water pipelines moving forward.
Yeah. And the other thing, the other exception that I was looking at, hold on a second. The other exception I was looking at is it specifies the level of the water that you'd be distributing. Now, I went to the Las Colinas site, and according to that site, the water they're putting out now exceeds Title 22 standards. So I don't know what the exact level of disinfection is for that water, but if it exceeds the standards that are set forth under that distancing regulation, you know, we might not be subject to those distancing prohibitions. So there's the one exception that I just sent you, and then there's that other exception, which is at least worth looking into, which is whether our Las Colinas water is above the standard. Well, I'm trying to think how to describe it, but is a higher standard than the Title 22 separation recycled water prohibition. So anyway, two different ways to skin the cat, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other board comments? Any public comments?
There are none.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure where we are. Are we prepared to go to the board, or do we want to kick it back one more time, or perhaps we can deal with it in the board meeting?
Sure.
About where we are.
What's our deadline on it?
Well, the city of San Rafael will be opening up the bids. I think it was in December, correct, Jake?
Yeah, so bids are opening on December 2nd.
Correct. And if I recall correctly, they're looking to start construction early next year, around February.
Okay. Well, Alex, if you could take a look at that exception, Crystal, you guys, and just see whether there's a workaround there that might be worth pursuing with the State Water Board, you know? I mean, they may be more amenable to a little more creative engineering given our drought that we're dealing with, you know?
I will definitely look into that, Director Bragman.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
And the other thing is, you know, we're sort of betting on the future here, which is fine, because if the pipe stays empty, then you can put anything you want in the trench, huh? You know, so the risk would be the cost of the pipe and the small amount of labor to put it in. And if we can't ever use it, we can't ever use it. You could always put fresh water in it.
When we talk about price, do we have a ballpark? What are we talking about?
Basically, if we were to install a recycled water pipeline, it would be about a 60% increase in cost for the total project budget.
All right.
6 or 60?
60.
60, he said.
Yeah, okay, not cheap. Well, cheaper than redoing it.
Yeah. Well, the main difference is digging up the street. You know, that's what concerns me. We're going through a mile of San Rafael here. And if we come back in 3 years and say we need to dig this up again, we're not going to be real popular people.
No. And this is a whole design improvement down on the West End. So it's kind of a big deal.
So if the board referred this to, we would address this item at the board meeting we bring it, if you would go ahead and refer it. And the next item, as noted, we're going to dive deep into the same topic by design.
Okay. Any public comment?
There are none.
Okay. I think we got it. Everybody cool?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 5.
Okay, that's me. So I'll be presenting this item on the recycled water pipeline. So this morning I'll be providing an informational update on recycled water pipeline feasibility. We've kind of got into a little bit right now, kind of for discussion. So district staff currently evaluates the installation of the recycled water pipeline when we initiate our potable pipeline replacement projects. During the design phase, we evaluate obviously the proximity of the potable pipeline to the existing recycled facilities. And if there's nothing within the existing area, then recycled pipe is currently omitted from the project. If there is recycled water pipeline within 500 feet of the proposed pipeline project, then that would trigger further discussion with the director of engineering and then the respective wastewater agency to provide, we'll be providing the recycled water just to determine a timeline for that to happen. In addition to the discussion of the wastewater agency, additional design standards and costs need to be considered to determine the feasibility. The installation of pipeline next to the potable water pipeline, even though I did reference the Title 22 in a certain section, I will be looking into Director Bragman's recommendation as far as horizontal clearances, but based on the section 6457.2 of Title 22, at least for secondary, tertiary recycled water, we need 10 horizontal feet of separation and 4 feet for tertiary recycled water. And I believe Las Colinas is tertiary recycled water. So it's
absolutely.
Shorter,
absolutely, yeah. Yes.
So that horizontal separation is a little bit less. In either case, we still need at least 1 foot of vertical separation, which means that that pipe needs to be lower than our water main when it's installed. So that kind of puts it just based on that in a separate trench altogether. But once I look into section F of Title 22, that may change. So additional installations of the second pipe, we also got to consider, and we do consider impacts to the traffic and the public. So during the design layout, all efforts were made to install the new pipe on the opposite side of the road, on the opposite side of the pipeline, closest to the edge of pavement. So we don't have too much impact with the existing pipeline. So if we did that and we had to maintain that 10 foot or 4 foot horizontal separation, that would potentially put the recycled pipeline either in the middle of the lane or towards a center line, which actually drastically impacts traffic and trying to reroute things around. So that's kind of it's not impossible, but it's just more impactful to traffic. So some things we can do to kind of mitigate for that is consider installing the new water main first, along with all the service transfers and switching everyone over to the new main. And then once that's done, we could actually go back in and install a recycled pipeline in the alignment of the old abandoned main. So that way it's got the furthest horizontal separation and it's actually on the opposite side of the road. So that way we really do minimize impact to traffic. So I think that would be something that we could do to help minimize impact to traffic if we went down this route. In addition to doing that, if we were to install it and there wasn't an immediate tie-in for the recycled water pipeline, then the risk could be that a contractor could hit the unpressurized unfilled pipe and not fix it. Or what we could do to mitigate that, we could tie it into the existing potable system to increase flow in the area, or we could determine to leave it empty and then TV it before we put it into service, just to make sure that the pipe integrity hasn't been damaged.
Or Alex, you could pressurize it with nitrogen and monitor the pressure and just see what happens, or water for that matter.
Yeah.
You hit on something interesting though. What about using the old pipeline as the reclaimed water pipeline?
That is a very good point. I was definitely considering that, Director Russell. The one issue or concern I had with that is that most of the pipe we're replacing is an old cast iron. So it's not in very good shape to begin with, and it's got a bunch of service taps. So we'd still have to go into the pipeline and remove those service taps and then put full circle clamps to actually basically disconnect the pipe from any services that could be accidentally tapped into.
You got to move the service taps anyway to the new main. So
So once that's done, those old service taps are completely abandoned, but they'd still be hot, so we'd have to go in there and tap them. I was considering that, but I think that would require a little bit more work, and then the quality of the pipe is still questionable because of the age. So
no question. But leaking isn't so important. Okay,
exactly.
If we're leaking reclaimed water, it's important, but not as critical as leaking fresh water. I think what we're really talking about here is, I think we're on to a little bit of rethinking, Alex, so that we can, and I don't take this the wrong way. We're a little bit behind the times, I think, in our approach, and it's not your fault. Absolutely not your fault. It's a residual benefit from previous folks who have sat in your seat and the seat above your seat. So I think it's time for us to really scratch our heads and think about the plan, because I remember as crystal clear as can be my conversation with Bob Castle on day one that I joined the board in 2004. And that was great. Let me see the plan for the reclaimed water. There's 9 districts, 9 areas. So how many are completed? 1. How many are completed today? 1. You know, we haven't moved forward anything in that area, not out of that one district, which is a good district. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, the embassy suites and the AutoCAD building and the county headquarters, and that's all good. But, you know, we've been a little laggardy, I think, on pushing this thing forward. And we've got, you know, the one was an important one. You got Northgate, you got all these places, you know, the people are complaining about our new connections. The most of the connections we're talking about are in the Northgate area, volumetrically, number-wise, where they're going to have the dual water source. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that's being missed by many of our constituents in what our plans are. But with that said, I think we really need to have a scratch your head, sit down and think about what our plan going forward is for reclaimed water. Now, I fully understand that with DPR, this discussion may become moot. I got it. You know, the question is, I don't know what we do about DPR. Maybe that's the discussion needs to be held. If in December 23, if it's said where it's allowed to use DPR, are we going to use it? I don't know the answer to that. And probably nobody else does either, you know. I mean, it sounds good
right now.
Who, what?
CMSA just authorized a study by Carollo to update their study for DPR.
Yeah, the problem is until the standards come out, you can't quite know where you are, huh? You know.
Well, you know, but we'll get updated data that'll give us a little better idea, you know, whether it's feasible.
Yeah, I think the issue, it's feasible. I can tell you that already. The real issue is, does it pass the tummy rubbing stage? Okay. I mean, that's what we're really talking about. Is it saleable? You know, do we want it? You know, that's what we need to talk about.
So,
you know, the mechanical side of getting it is it's doable. There's no question about it.
So on this item, one thought is going forward for all pipeline replacement projects, we would add a section that discusses the opportunity to put in recycled water pipe and why we're pursuing it or why we aren't. And the companion piece to this recommendation would be we develop written kind of basis and criteria on which we would recommend installing pipe and bring that as a companion document and that probably does get refined a bit over time. But what we would take a look at every pipeline project. Are we recommending to put in purple pipe or not, and why? And of course, some of them will be easy, that there's just no conceivable project in the vicinity. Some may be more difficult in terms of cost or traffic or some of that, but we would proceed along that while we're looking at the sort of issues that you raised, Director Russell, in terms of our long-term plan. Do we feel it's purple pipe or IPR, DPR, and how does that fit together?
Ben,
of course.
We actually have been putting in a little section about purple pipe.
Right. Okay. No, well, we have done that, but we could expand it with details and how it compares to criteria we established, kind of build on that new direction.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's all been in that zone 1 that we've made changes, which is really the issue that I'm kicking the tires on. I think that's well said, Ben. You know, what I'm really talking about is a change in philosophy. I think that our position as a district, other than in the 80s when the first was built, has been sort of negative on this issue. And I think that's the one that needs to be kicked around. I think the other thing is that you could always run the DPR through the IPR pipes. There's nothing wrong with that. So, you know, but the point that Larry Bragman has made routinely, and he's exactly right, is, you know, if we don't do it, it ain't never going to get done. Right. And that's really the issue that I'm kicking tires about. I mean, the classic example is the shopping center across from the ferries. It's fully plumbed, dual plumbed, but we've never brought reclaimed water to it. So the contractor paid the price of putting it all in, which, you know, they whine about this, but I think it's actually fairly minimal. It's just basically 2 supply lines.
Right.
You know, and it's done. Once it's done, as we've said 100 times. You know, that's the value of this kind of approach. And vice versa, that's the negative part of not doing it, is if you don't do it, then it's always, oh my God, it's so expensive and it's going to be impossible to dig up the streets and blah, 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 blah. That's, now, you know, we fully understand DPR side of it. Yes, we got it. That's a cute solution. The problem is, we've talked though, it's, you know, you've got it's a hotter temperature than our cold water. So it's easily identifiable. What are we going to do about that, if anything? You know, there's a lot of questions. And Ben, maybe we need not a giant look, but you know, something beyond the rubbing the tummy evaluation. Maybe we need to talk to Carollo about the work they're doing for CSMA. I don't know where they're focused, but maybe that's something we could tie into us.
We should weigh in on that study. I sent CMSA board a letter asking them to expand the study to at least take a look at IPR and some of the other possibilities. Never heard back from them, but, you know.
Well, you know, they have a kind of funny board, CSMA.
Yeah.
It's a
guys, I'm so sorry. I need to break in for just a second. I'm quite late for meeting, so I have to go. So I just didn't want to disappear. So I just want to say I'm sorry to miss the next item, which is sort of a continuation of this conversation. And so I'm just going to ask if we can have that agendized at a full board meeting. So thanks everybody and have a good day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Aren't we on the next item? I thought this was the last item.
Yeah, this is the next
item. Did I miss one?
Yeah.
Well, it is the current item, right? Is the one, I think that's the one she's referring to.
But it used to be the next item.
Yeah, exactly. And for some of us, perhaps it still is. Yeah, I mean, this is very helpful, Alex and Crystal. You know, it's a little bit take your breath away kind of numbers, but, you know, they are what they are. You know, I'm not so concerned, as you've heard me say hundreds of times, about the cost per acre foot, but just the sheer capital cost, you know, Peacock Gap, 20 million. You know, maybe we'll get a little better numbers than that out of the current, what, for instance, is the basis of the 20 million. That looks like the old number from when Mike Bond was here.
Right. And I just want to point out that the proposed future expansion of recycled water has specific pipeline alignments to reach a specific demand, right? Because we're trying to target high demand users in order to bring the recycled water to them. So when we do these pipeline projects, if the proposed pipeline alignment to get to that customer is coincides with the potable pipeline replacement, then yes, it would definitely make sense to add the recycled water to eventually get it to them, to add the pipeline. Yeah.
Do we know how much water McNears uses, the quarry? Is that a high water user?
Not that I'm aware.
I don't think so, Larry. They have fresh water at the bottom, as I recall.
Okay.
You know, in the excavation. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
And they've been pretty good, I think, about trying to be environmentally sensitive, as sensitive as a quarry can be, you know, from the basic definition.
I think they were sued.
Yeah, they were.
To get there, but yeah, I know they.
Yeah, I think they were too. But in any case, I believe they're trying. That was sort of the way the last round I heard on it.
It's improved.
Yeah, Dutra's you know, I mean, people don't even know that Dutra was the one that pushed the Bay Bridge back into place for free. When the earthquake, Loma Prieta, occurred, the bridge was out of alignment by 13 feet. Dutra went over with their barge and pushed it back into place at no charge to Caltrans. You know, I think their heart is in the right place, whether they're, you know, like I say, it's always hard with a quarry. It's kind of the worst. It's like a mine, right? It's the worst possible attack on nature you can have from the conceptual standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ben, do you think we going to kick around getting a report out on something like that about where we are and where we should be? Or do you think we have enough information?
I think we'll start doing it. There's a lot of pieces once we bring in the long-term direction, but I do think the stepwise approach makes sense, where we bring detailed analysis on each project, explaining what we're recommending as it relates to purple pipe, why or why not for the board to engage with as we develop criteria and as we think about the longer term plays.
Could I add one other point, Ben, which is we need to step up enforcement of the installation of purple pipe. You know, there was a recent project that was not required to install it, and it turned out legally they were. So I think we really need to take a real hard look at our existing purple area and make sure all those new projects are purple, that's going to be enforced. So we got enough problems, you know, getting our ankles bit by ABAG, you know, on housing allotments. And I think it's just critical that those projects, Northgate, all those high density projects be hooked up to our system. If
well, Northgate already is. I mean, that's already, the water's already to the shopping center.
Yeah, no, I know. There was another one that wasn't. So, I mean, it's just, you know, it just needs to be part of our DNA up there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we need to maybe even go one step further, Larry, and that is to make it mandatory on all projects. And then they're going to say, well, you don't have the water. Well, then our answer is we will. You know,
or you do an offset for expanding it where it is feasible, you know, like Circle Drive, you know, they want it there.
Right.
But,
sure.
Right. So you could get an offset for another project. You're paying for expansion in another area, but it offsets total consumption. Right. So, you know,
and that is the concept, Director Bragman, part of the concept that staff is working on in terms of no net water offsets for new development that we'll be bringing the board shortly.
Yeah, it's complicated, I know, you know.
Well, it is and it isn't, huh? Again, I think it's more just a change in thinking. And, you know, I think that is how we need to move forward, because I think it answers all the questions, you know, of how can you have growth? Well, the way you have growth is by zero offset. So, you know, and I think, you know, the builders are going to view it as another tax or another fee, but, you know, and it is, but it's really, really important. And I think it solves a lot of our political issues and provides good answers to the questions.
Yeah, it's better planning for sure. So,
yeah. And especially, Ben, you know, I mean, it's going to be difficult before December of 23 to know exactly what is required. I mean, it could be that the requirements are so onerous that no one is going to be interested in doing DPR unless they are willing to spend $500 million doing additional studies. So we really don't know, and we may be jumping the gun a little bit, but we're surely not jumping the gun on what Larry's talking about, which is purple pipe or double plumbing.
Isn't the perception that the regulations are going in the opposite direction? They're getting easier?
Unclear, Jack. Unclear. It depends on what you mean by easier. You know, my conversations with George Vonnegut about this exact subject has been, you know, if you're so worried about redundancy, then put in 7 ROs in series, and the last 6 do nothing. They just sit there. But if that, you know, basically bend over backwards to please the state. But even with all that, then you have the other side of it. I mean, I'm already getting pushback from my casual conversations in my district about toilet to tap, you know. So it's like it's like this. You mean we take a shower with that water? Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, we got a few humps to get over, and
but those attitudes pass. I mean,
they do, and so do the people. So do the people who have those attitudes. Those pass too.
No. Well, we're not hoping for that, but
no. But it's a fact of reality.
Well, maybe if they shower in the water, it'll.
Yeah.
The regulations have gotten less stringent. For example, an unplanned discharge of recycled water is no longer considered a sewage discharge. So you're not subject to such strict penalties.
Well, that's good. That's good. So like the county building doesn't have to worry about runoff on the sidewalks of their irrigation water now, because they used to, because it drained into that lagoon, and that's good to hear. I also want to thank you for adjusting your schedule. I know it was a difficulty. This time was difficult for you, Crystal, but I appreciate it.
No problem. We have some very important meetings to get work around.
Well, this one has got a bright future. I mean, I think this is something where we can really leave a mark on the district forever. And, you know, I think this is really, really important stuff. And I appreciate your openness and your good thinking, Crystal, and your gang to, you know, making this happen, because, you know, it basically, if you don't kick the dog, it's going to be status quo and everything's going to be the same as it was. And I clearly remember the hotel that didn't get built on the sewage treatment plant, the Ross Valley plant that was at over by the shopping center where I'm talking about, by Tom Price's operation, the one that had the mercury spill and all that. And, you know, they were going to build, and they were going crazy about the dual plumbing, you know, like, oh, it's going to cost us $180,000. Yeah, whatever. You know, it's just something that, as Larry just talked about, this one on Circle or wherever that was, that, you know, if you don't do it now, you don't do it when you build it, it isn't ever going to happen. You're not going to go in and rip out walls and put in a second supply plumbing for the bathrooms, you know, and we should recognize that places like Japan, that's just routine. They always plumb for it. They're ready. And when it comes, they hook it up. You know, so I think we need to be progressive in this area, as progressive as we can be anyway. Okay. Any public comment?
Yes, Larry Minikis, please. Go ahead, Mr. Minikis.
Good morning. Good comments all around. I just want to make one small comment, and this was the mistake that was made many years ago. And to Director Russell, please do not use the term toilet to tap.
Oh, I know. I used it on purpose, Larry. I know.
It
wasn't a mistake.
Direct potable reuse. That is what your general manager and that's a much
that's
more
a good point.
Much
that's
more
a good point.
term. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to say going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There are no further comments.
Okay. Well, with that, let's close the meeting.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.